Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and I've got something truly exciting for you here today. We are going to be checking out a brand new game mode, 30 versus 30 combat on a map that is 9 times bigger than the biggest map currently in World of Tanks. This game mode is called Frontline and it's currently on the sandbox test server, so please keep in mind that everything that you see is subject to change. Hopefully massive improvements will be made before it hits a test server where I want all of you to be able to go and enjoy it. But at least for now, hopefully I can provide you a sneak peek, my opinion of the game mode, and show you what it's all about, the fundamentals. So Frontline is based on 30 players against 30 players, and it fights down 3 fronts. We've got one front down the left of the map, one front down the middle of the map, and one front down the right of the map. Now, while players are divided, I guess, 10, 10, and 10 at the start of the battle, and of course the defending team are going to be divided 10, 10, 10 and here, that you aren't fixed to one front. You can go and change to wherever you want. Now, I'm on the attacking team here. This map, there's only one currently on the sandbox test server, and this one is called Epic Normandy. And as we can clearly see, it's based on the Normandy landings with the beachfront, and then working your way into a town towards the northern part of the map. Now, everything else about the game is completely the same. It's the same World of Tanks that you will enjoy in the random game mode, i.e. you shoot vehicles, you damage them, you have hit points, you try and kill the enemy, but also it's just very different because there are so many different cap circles. Now, the cap circles work in a similar way. Apart from what I found is that I don't think you actually remove somebody's cap circles by damaging them inside the cap circle. You have to actually kill them. Now, you might be wondering, well, what stops players from going around the back and spawn camping? And as we can see there, it looks exactly like that's what this Bat Chatillon on the enemy team is trying to do. And so I'm going over there to make sure he doesn't go and catch the artillery that's on the beachfront. But as I found, this dashed line that you see me going over here right now marks a point where the enemy cannot go. And look on the right here, that Bat Chatillon was not killed by a self-propelled gun that was controlled by a player on my team. He was destroyed by NPC or AI-controlled artillery fire. So that prevents players from going into locations of the map that they're not meant to be in. And at the start of the battle, that means that the defenders are not allowed to go to the beachfront, and that also means that the attackers are not allowed to go past areas that they haven't gained control of yet. So for example, if I want to go into this F area, I have to take the C cap circle, and so that's what you see me trying to do now. Now, of course, auto-loaders, absolutely monstrous in these kind of situations, the bursty fire. But let's focus at what you saw at the top of the screen. And I'm not indicating that A was just captured, but as we can see, it clearly is, and now they're going to be able to move on into the D area. What I focused on is the promotion system. And that's because there are a series of ranks that you can gain in each round. Now, currently, those ranks don't provide you with any perks, but hopefully they will do in the future. Now, the ranks are private. Now, everybody can be private. There can be 45 privates on your team, and everyone starts out as a private. Next up, 25 players can reach the rank of sergeant. Then 12 players can reach the rank of lieutenant. 6 players can reach the rank of captain. 3 players can reach the rank of major, but there can only be 1 general on either team. Now, you might be thinking, well, what happens if you do die in this game mode as we reach the lieutenant rank there? Well, it's not the end of the world, because once you die in this game mode, you can just get straight back into it in whatever tank you choose. So here we go, we can see the spawning feature. And what you can do is you can click on the left and the right to select whatever tank you want, and after 30 seconds of your death, you can deploy. But there are a couple of things that you need to watch out for. And you can see also that you can select whatever cap circle you want. Or so not a cap circle, a spawning area. And the spawning area continues to advance down the battle line. So for example, I could spawn in the A area to go and contest the D. I'm not sure where I'm going to spawn. I'm actually going to go and try and I'm going to go and try and take on the C cap circle where I just died. Now, you might be thinking, well, what stops you from just YOLOing in and dying and dying and dying and dying? And that's because you have lives in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. I'm just checking to make sure my camera is not covering it up. It is not. And we can see that you can store up to 2 lives at one time. And these respawn every 5 minutes. And so that means that if I was to die right now, that I would not be able to respawn for an entire minute. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but of course, if you die instantly after you have just used up all of your lives, then you might be sitting there for 5 minutes, and so it discourages people from throwing away their lives recklessly, which does mean that the kills are still important. Killing players, damaging players does have meaning, and so, but it's also not too punishing, so that, for example, you're just sitting there waiting constantly to spawn, unless you truly are reckless. Now we're just taking the cap circle here, and we can see how it works. You obviously don't want to be taking damage. And the cap circle is going up, looks like at a rate of about 2 or 3, considering that we've got 3 players inside the cap circle. Now you might have noticed that when I take damage, and when I do take damage here from the SDB1, spoilers, what a shot that was. You can see that my base capture is actually blocked. So it stops you from gaining base capture points for a few seconds, but then you start to gain them. And the cap circle didn't go down, which suggests to me that the only way to actually save the cap circle is to kill the tanks that are inside it. And that does give the attackers a little bit of an advantage. Now you can see the game is suggesting to me to advance to the front line, and you might be wondering, well, what happens to this Panzer VII who's stuck here, just on my right? Because now obviously the front line has advanced to this location. Well, the game gives him about 45 seconds, 50 seconds to be able to escape, otherwise he is going to get hit by artillery. In fact, I think he's got about 35 seconds left to get out of there before he gets hit. Now you might be noticing that I just repaired my vehicle, and that's because situated all over the map there are repair depots. Well, when I say all over, there's 2 in the starting circle and there's 1 in the circle after that. And if you go and sit in those for a few seconds, you will gain all of your health back, you will gain all of your ammo back, and you'll also resupply your consumables, which can be immensely useful. Obviously, for a vehicle like the Bat Chatillon, a tank that... Oh, you can see I've actually gone into the enemy zone. Look where I am on the map. I've gone into it just a little bit to kill that STRV-103B, and the game punishes me heavily. I lose my driver, I lose about a quarter of my hit points, and I start to get back out of there. So you certainly don't want to go into the enemy's circle until it's right. Now you might have noticed that even though we took the C cap circle, we weren't allowed to go into the F area immediately. Gives you about, I think, about 50 seconds, roughly about a minute for the enemy to leave the C area and to set up a new defensive line on the F area. So that's quite a cool mechanic as well, because each time it allows the defenders to regroup, to re-dig in, to try and take defensive locations, and then be able to try and stop the attackers. But also it does feel like the attackers have a real good chance to be able to take the cap circles when they do manage to get in them. And I think this idea of actually having to destroy vehicles inside the cap circles, it does make it a hell of a lot easier for the attackers to attack than if, for example, their cap points were reset if they just took damage. So now you might be wondering, well, how do the defenders win? Because the defenders can't go back and take areas which they have taken. Well, there is a timer up in the top right-hand corner of the screen, and whenever a zone is taken, it adds 2.5 minutes onto the game for the attackers to try and progress to the enemy base. And so that means the defenders just have to try and defend for as long as they can to be able to win quickly. But of course, every time they lose an area, it extends the duration of the game by another 2.5 minutes. And in this situation, you can see that we've managed to take the A and the D area, and now we're allowed to go and contest the enemy's inner circle, even though we haven't quite taken the B area. But it is useful to go back and take the B area if you can manage to, because at least then you can add extra time on to be able to take out the enemy's turrets. So currently, every single slot of the captain rank has been taken, all 6 of them, and we're all going to be battling to see who can become the first major on our team. And this is where you really want to be packing in the damage, and the tier 10 auto-loading Czechoslovakian medium tank is certainly a vehicle to do that. And I want to try and track him before he gets up onto the ridge. He's only got 8 degrees of gun depression, but it still looks like he's enough. Well, enough to be able to shoot me at least. And there we go, we get promoted, and we are the first major on our team. And now it becomes a battle to try and get the 1 slot to become the general of your team. And I really hope that Wargaming reward players who do reach the certain ranks with either credits, experience, maybe some kind of an achievement, or, you know, in-game abilities to be able to try and sway the battle. Maybe advanced command techniques to be able to maybe draw on the map to try and organize assaults and to try and plan tactics for their team. Anything at all, because at the moment it does feel a little bit arbitrary. So now I'm going to switch flanks from the D area all the way over to the F area, because I feel like they've put a really good defense here. They've dug in on the buildings, and they've created this kill zone in the field that's really hard to try and push over, but it looks like we're breaking through the east. Now you might be wondering, how do the attackers win the final stage of the game? Well, the enemy have got 5 different turrets, as we're going to be seeing in a second, that they have to defend, all spread across their rear vanguard. Now, these turrets have, I believe, 5,000 hit points each. No, sorry, 4,000 hit points each. Oh dear, sorry about that, Mr. Bat Chatillon 15558. And the players actually physically damage the turrets at the end of the game. It's not enough to be able to go into a cap circle to be able to take them. You actually have to destroy the turrets. Now, from what I felt, I think they have probably about maybe 350, possibly 400 millimeters of frontal armor. But when you do get the side, I believe they've only got about 300 millimeters or about 250 millimeters of armor. Here we can see here, red indicator over the front. So I realize that I'm going to be wasting my time trying to shoot it there. And actually, your best chance to be able to damage these turrets are to shoot them in the back. Now, currently, apparently, I haven't confirmed this myself, but players have been telling me that you can shoot them with self-propelled guns. And so that seems a little bit cheeky, in my opinion, that you can just shoot self-propelled guns into these locations. There we can see we ricochet off the side once. We penetrate once there, damaging the turret, and there we go, we've destroyed them. Now, how many turrets do you have to kill? Well, you don't have to kill all of them. The attacking team has to kill 3 of them. And so that basically prevents the enemy team from blobbing 30 players around maybe one of the turrets and trying to just make an impossible defense for the attackers to get through. Now, what rank are we now? We are still one of 2 majors, and you can see a progress bar. I guess it must be based on experience. It could actually be based on damage. I haven't confirmed that, and if anyone knows, please do let me know in the comments down below whether it is damage or experience that it's based upon. I have been promoted sometimes for just doing nothing, so I feel like it might be based on experience and spotting and so on and so forth. And so right now, we hopefully will be able to get this T124 and then become the single general on our team. How many other majors are there? There's one other major. We've got to try and outdo this T57 heavy. Now, I know this T124 can't turn his turret the whole way around, but if he moves his tracks as well, he will be able to. But it looks like, unfortunately, his reactions are not quite as good as they need to be. Will I be able to hit his tracks? Oh no, that was a bit of a misplay. Now we've got to try and put some rounds through his front plate. The AMX-30B hits me, and luckily the TVP finishes him off just before I'm able to. Now we will be able to hit this 30B with our last shot. Yeah, okay. So how is this front going? Well, it looks like we're pretty much dominating this. Having taken the 5th enemy turret, now we're going to hopefully sweep in and take the 4th, and trying to fight for the town to go in for 3 seems to be the best bet. Usually, the enemies try and set up a defense in this kind of an area, or a defense in this kind of an area, and it really does pay to switch sides of the map and leave the enemies stuck there, and then be able to try and swarm one of the turrets, because you only have to take them out one by one. You don't need to kill them all at the same time, and they're not repairable. One thing I should mention is at this stage of the game, the defenders can't actually respawn in multiple vehicles. And so what you might be noticing is that a lot of them are red, and that's because they've lost too many of their tanks. And so that does give the attackers a rather large advantage. So we shut down the 30B, and there we go! General QuickyBaby in the house, the only one, and that locks that spot off, and no one else on our team can achieve the general rank. And so if you are a lone wolf and you do like to try and compete for damage and compete for, or alternatively experience with your team, then that can be quite a fun game mode for you. One thing I should also mention is it does announce to your entire team when somebody does become the general. So if you want to have your name up in lights in front of the other 29 players on your team, then that might be something special for you. So we get shut down by the Object 430 there, but as we can see, our team takes out the 3rd turret. So that means that we've got a choice to take out any one of the 3 remaining turrets to be able to win the game, and we've got 8 minutes and 20 seconds to do so. So it's looking like the attackers are certainly going to be victorious here, but there's only one thing left to do. The general has to go in and try and take out the remaining turret in his tier 10 Czechoslovakian autoloader. Now, one thing I'd like to mention is that I really do think that because these maps are so large, that having a good amount of speed does feel very useful. Let's think about it. This map is 3 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide, right? So if you're driving at 20 kilometers an hour in a mouse, it's going to take you between 6 and 7 minutes of continuous driving to go from one end of the map to the other. That does seem like a little long, and I'd probably rather be able to do it in a couple of minutes in a vehicle like a TVP, right? I think mobility is a little bit key here, but Wargaming does have an ability where players who feel like they're stuck in a location that they don't want to be in, to be able to respawn and be able to change their vehicle. So that is rather useful. And one thing that I found is that different parts of the map suit different tanks. Early on, you might want to be in a heavy to try and hold these cap circles, whereas later on, if you're defending, you probably want to be in a long-range tank destroyer or a sniping medium tank, or even some of the better sniping heavies like the FV215B to be able to make use of the open field. And then later on, it turns into this street brawling, where again the heavies can be very useful. And if you're on the defensive team, you might want to play some of the heavies and try and block off some of the locations. The 3 cap is actually very interesting. because it's up on a castle on a hill, a bit like Castle von Himmelsdorf, so you have to slip your way up over this slope to be able to reach there. Okay, so how are we doing? We're going to go and get after this AMX-50B. We're just going to pad a little bit more of our damage out towards the end of the game. Oh, this is where this tank is just so beautiful. We're going to go for a reload, and we're going to turn our attention now, it looks like, towards the final turret that we have to take down. Turret 4. It looks like we've got a bunch of tanks that are converging down upon it. It's got 4,000 hit points, so when you think about it, that isn't that much, right? That's, I guess, a couple of artillery shells if they're firing armor-piercing rounds and they do manage to penetrate it. By the way, I can't confirm that artillery can destroy those turrets. I've only been told by players that it can, but we're going to have to... I'll try and confirm that for you maybe at a later point. But thinking about it having 4,000 hit points, that really isn't that much, right? That's 4 Jagdpanzer E100s all penetrating it, and with their 420 millimeters of heat penetration, I can expect that it'd be quite easy to even go through it from the front. But again, I don't even know if it's possible to pen those things from the front. I certainly can pen them from the side. I'm about maybe a 1 in 3, maybe a 1 in 2 chance to be able to go through it with about 270 millimeters of pen. But when you do get up behind it, it is rather easy. So I think I'm going to be reloading a heat magazine here to try and... Oh no, sorry, still APCR rounds to go after this 113. Oh yeah. One more. Good night, sweetheart. Picking up what? Is that our 11th kill of this game? What a riot. And up to 14,000 damage. I believe I've died 2 or 3 times so far. And slowly but surely, we're killing all of the remaining defenders. And look how many of their team are red. They're just running out of hope. And now it's going to be a case of just converging upon that 4th turret and taking it down. However, we've got 5 minutes left, so the enemy actually held on for a lot longer than I thought they would. So here comes the 121 up the slope, that tier 10 Chinese medium tank. Oh, we set him on fire. Beautiful. Great result. And now this is where I reload my heat magazine to go right after the turret. And after a 20-second reload, this is where you take the victory. And just check out this turret. It does look... Can you imagine that thing hitting you? Maybe that's the thing that hit that Bat Chatillon early on in the replay. And here we go. We're going to put one in. Will we get the finishing shot? Will the general finish off the final remaining turret in the base? I just got hit by 2 Jagdpanzer E100s. They focused me down, didn't focus anyone else on my team down. And so although we put 1 shot in, General QuickyBaby doesn't quite manage to put the final shot in. And so after the battle, just like in the random game mode, you are presented with some post-game stats. Tells you the amount that you spotted, how much you blocked, not a lot considering we were playing lightly armored medium tanks, your assist damage, and the regular damage did 15,000. Looks so bizarre in 12 kills. That wouldn't be a bad game if it was in a random queue, right? And of course, the credits, the experience, and the rank you get. And you might notice that the amount of credits that you get is rather extravagant. But when you die multiple times, this actually ends up with you not getting many credits out of it. And I barely made a profit, and when we also factor in I spent 50 gold, then really I made a loss in this game. And that's absolutely bizarre because I finished top of both teams by experience. I did the most damage out of 60 players. I got the most kills out of 60 players, and yet I still made a loss. But I'd like to clarify this is the sandbox test server. The economics are probably not even close to being fine-tuned yet. But if anyone out there from Wargaming is watching this video, I strongly recommend that you make the economics of this game mode at least neutral or attractive for the average player to be able to enjoy it, because that was one of the biggest reasons why the Rampage failed. It was just so expensive to play, and unless you were finishing at the top of your team regularly, there was precious little point of playing it, unless of course you just enjoyed Rampage game mode, which not a lot of people did. So all in all, I had a hell of a lot of fun playing this game mode for the first few hours that I played it, and with continued enhancements, it looks like it could be a very attractive addition to World of Tanks to add variety. Now of course, currently this game mode is only open to tier 10 vehicles. And I'm not sure if Wargaming have specifically said if they're going to open it up to tier 9 and tier 8 tanks as well, because I bet a lot of you are looking at the amount of experience that you get and thinking, boy, that'd be nice to get in my tier 8 vehicles, right? Well, we'll just have to wait and see, and hopefully Wargaming will also be adding in other maps, because I have to admit, after playing Epic Normandy for about 6-7 times in a row, it did get a little bit boring, but I can certainly imagine adding 1 or 2 games of Frontline into my evening of playing the random queue. And finally, one thing I failed to mention is that you can actually make platoons with up to 5 people for the Frontline game mode. So if you've always felt limited, at least on the PC, with only playing with 2 of your other buddies, then you can play with up to 4. And there's no doubt that 5 skilled, coordinated players could certainly turn the tide of battle and be able to push one of the fronts towards the enemy base. And so there you have it, a preview of World of Tanks Frontline. Finally, 30 versus 30 gameplay on a map 9 times as big as the current maximum. And let me know your initial opinions in the comments down below. Do you think it looks awesome? Do you think it looks awful? And also, if you've enjoyed this video or maybe it was just useful to you, please give it a like. I'd really appreciate it. And stay tuned in the channel as I'll keep you up to date with everything to do with Frontline. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.